With Matt Eberflus, Luke Getsy, and Justin Fields all fighting for their jobs in 2024, they need to make a statement on Sunday and dominate the Arizona Cardinals.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1. You can find the Locked On Bears podcast on all of your favorite social media platforms, including YouTube, where you can view our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedonnfl and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. On the show today, we look at how the Chicago Bears and Arizona Cardinals match up, what the Chicago Bears need to do to win this game, and more importantly, make a big statement. Show that, yes, while this has been a disappointing Bears season, that you are more on the level of the playoff teams you've played close in the last handful of games and not down at the bottom of the NFL with the Arizona Cardinals, who are also eyeing up that number one overall pick this season. It starts with Justin Fields and Luke Getsy saying, all right, bad defense, then go play good, consistent offense for 4 quarters. Really dominate in ways that we have not seen nearly consistently enough this season. We'll look at where the weaknesses are, pretty much everywhere on this Arizona Cardinals defense. Then we'll turn our attention to Kyler Murray and the Cardinals offense, where the Bears defense needs to watch out, and a couple of position groups in particular I think will be attacked and stressed in this game. And we'll wrap up with the key matchups on both sides of the ball that will go a long way towards a Chicago Bears victory on Sunday. But this is the kind of matchup for Chicago that offensively you need to see Luke Getsy at his best as a play caller and Justin Fields at his best as a quarterback. Certainly the Cardinals defense will be ready for a mobile quarterback. They practice against one every day, so it's not like you're going to surprise them with Justin Fields' mobility, and they may have some plans to try and keep Fields more in the pocket, or at the very least limit some of the damage that he can do with his legs. But this is a game and a defense that you shouldn't even need Justin Fields' legs to win and to play at a very high level. This is a game that, and a defense that you can just throw against. It's okay. Like, you look at this Cardinals defense, certainly the safety position is their strength. We heard a little bit about this yesterday from Alex Clancy on Locked On Cardinals for Crossover Thursday. You know, Jalen Thompson, Budda Baker, those are a little bit more like the household type names on their defense. Thompson leads them in interceptions. We know Budda Baker's been a really consistent playmaker pretty much throughout his entire NFL career. Those guys are solid. And maybe as a result, you won't see as many huge, deep opportunities, although I still think there can be some there because they're not going to be in 2 deep safeties all the time, right? They're going to have a variety of coverages, and their cornerbacks are particularly, young and inexperienced, and they've had some injuries at that spot as well. Like, it is not a super talented defense. I mean, really anywhere else besides the safety position. I mean, it's rough. I don't mean to there's certainly players with upside and young players to like there, but it is generally a young defense that they've invested a lot of draft picks in and haven't necessarily become, a next level defense. They certainly like to play a lot of 2 deep coverages. They play a lot of cover 4 and cover 2 in there, but they're pretty balanced on that end. When you watch them on the tape, they'll go man coverage with a single deep safety. They'll get after you in blitz sometimes. It's quite a variety of defense. They're going to throw a lot of different looks at Justin Fields, but in terms of the talent matchup, the Bears should be fine. The Cardinals don't have much of a pass rush. Their sack leader this season is a player by the name of Dennis Gardeck, who sounds like a created player in Madden. I could have made up that name and you probably wouldn't have known. He's a former undrafted free agent to them. I could be making up the name and you wouldn't know it. They've got Zaven Collins and BJ Ojulari, who you might remember from recent drafts, and they've been all right. But as far as consistency goes across the board, they're not getting enough after the quarterback. They might get a little bit of pressure here and there, but I'm not worried about Justin Fields being under duress the way he was last week against the Cleveland Browns, for a comparison. The Cardinals defense also misses a lot of tackles after the catch and in the running game. One of the higher defenses in the NFL in missed. They've missed over 120 missed tackles this season. Like, it's almost 10 a game across the board. It is not the kind of matchup to where you feel like, man, they're just going to out-talent you, that you just don't get the horses to go up against this Cardinals defense. And so this is where your stars on offense have to shine. DJ Moore needs to look like a number one receiver against inferior talent. Cole Kmet needs to look like a number one tight end against, at the very least, inferior linebackers. Maybe the safeties are good enough to where in that matchup you don't feel like you have nearly the advantage there, but against these linebackers, Cole Kmet needs to look like the clearly better player. Your running backs need to look like one of the top rushing attacks in football. Like, this is not a game where you have to do anything super new or inventive on offense. Like, stick with the stuff that works, your staple plays. Like, make them stop what you want to do. You don't got to be 3 steps ahead of them. Just run your plays and make them stop you. And then if you have to get creative because for whatever reason it's not working, cross that bridge when you get to it. But like, run the ball, play action rollouts off of that. Like, this doesn't need to be a complex, brand new game plan to throw things at the Cardinals that they're not prepared for. Like, you can just stick with their staple plays that you've been running all year long and make them stop you. Like, I'm sure they might have a sense of what you might be trying to do to them, but are they good enough to stop you, even if they kind of know what you might be doing against them? Especially if your Bears defense keeps playing at a very high level against a Cardinals offense that's got some weapons and got some players to be, to take note of. But generally, like, this is a 3-win football team for a reason. And this defense, in theory, the way they've been playing all season, should again give the offense plenty of good opportunities, whether it's turnovers or just better field position and not a lot of points on the scoreboard to have to compete with. It should be a comfortable situation for the Bears offense. And so they can't just look average or okay like they have in a lot of these games this season. Like, it's got to me, I need to see against a bad team like the Cardinals, you have to play like you did the first time against the Lions for the first 3.5 quarters, where like this offense was just clicking, right? Or play like they did against the Commanders back in week 5, or how they played against the Broncos for the first half in that game. Doesn't need to be 16 for 16 from Justin Fields, but like that kind of cohesiveness and dominance against an opponent that if you're Matt Eberflus and you're Luke Getsy and you say, hey, we deserve to be back next season, then you got to prove it by playing clearly better than a team like the Arizona Cardinals that's not picking that far from where you are in the NFL draft. The defense certainly has to do its job too, but I think there's a little bit more of an expectation of excellence there. But the Cardinals, I mean, for as bad as they've been this season, they got a freak at tight end. They're one of the better rushing teams in football, and Kyler Murray is still very good. He's just been hurt for a lot of the season. We'll get to know this Cardinals offense and what kind of difficulties might be in store for this Bears defense next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at DoorDash. DoorDash is a great way to get all of your favorites delivered right to your home, whether it's groceries right from the grocery store, right at your door. You don't have to go. You don't have to shop. They'll take care of it. They'll take care of it for you. You just pick out your stuff on the app. Or they also have like convenience stores like, Walgreens and CVS and stuff that can get, toiletries and stuff. If you're just short on something and need it DoorDashed quickly to your house, they'll take care of you there. But most importantly, I love DoorDash to be able to patronize local restaurants in my area from the comfort of my own home. You can look around DoorDash and find all sorts of foods that, they might not normally think of as delivery, but DoorDash makes that delivery super easy for you, especially on game day, whether it's pregame, halftime, or after the game, and you want a snack, a meal you're hosting, and you run out of something, DoorDash can bring that right to your door. And you can save some money on your DoorDash order if you use our promo code LOCKED23. Get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter in that promo code LOCKED23. Subject to change, terms apply. That's 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter in our promo code LOCKED23. This Arizona Cardinals offense has not been super productive this season, but they have enough of a threat where they scare you a little bit, like where you just feel like, okay, yeah, they're not going to consistently put up 28 points or anything on you. I mean, they're 25th in the NFL. They're averaging 18.5 points a game this season. But it's like Kyler Murray is an explosive athlete at quarterback. We know that. We know he's been a super high-level quarterback at times in his career. That this Cardinals offense as it stands right now, not the same supporting cast, perhaps, that he's had at other times in his career, and not playing up to that level. But there are a couple guys with Kyler Murray that can do some damage. I mean, I feel like their tight end, Trey McBride, if you play a lot of fantasy football, you might be a little bit more familiar with the kind of season he's having right now. But I feel like, as someone who doesn't play a ton of fantasy personally, like, he's someone who it feels to me like is getting a little bit overlooked. He's their leading receiver, 712 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he's just like everything you look for in a new age passing tight end. And it doesn't feel like to me he's exactly quite in the conversations with the Kelceys and the George Kittles of the world, but he's at least as a receiver producing up to that kind of level this season. He's been everything for them. A favorite target of Kyler Murray, a security blanket for them. He is 6th in the NFL in receiving yards among tight ends this season, just ahead of David Njoku, who had 100 yards on the Bears defense last week, and just behind Evan Ingram. It's Kelce, Hawkinson, Kittle, Laporta, Ingram, McBride. Like, that's the kind of category he's in. Like, certainly he's not Kelce, right? He's not Kittle, but he's having a very productive season and can threaten your defense in some of the same ways. He's a mismatch, right? He's one of these faster than the linebackers, bigger and stronger than the safeties. Now, the Bears happen to have one of the biggest, fastest, strongest linebackers in the NFL in Tremaine Edmonds, which certainly can help in a matchup like this. But, McBride is shifty, and they scheme him up well to get him open. He plays a lot in the slot, a lot in line. They kind of move him around and make him a priority in this offense. He makes contested catches among the best in the NFL this season at the tight end spot. You think of most of these tight ends as being guys that, yeah, of course, they're big, strong, and can make contested catches, but among tight ends, only Sam Laporta has had a higher rate of contested targets caught this season. He catches contested catches at a better rate than Evan Ingram, Hunter Henry, Mike Gesicki. I mean, and of course, Kelce, Kittle, all the other guys we talked about. The only person ahead of him is Sam Laporta in contested catches this season, and he's also near the top of the NFL in missed tackles forced after the catch among tight ends. So, like, he does a good job of getting open. He does a good job of making guys miss after the catch, and when he's covered, he does a good job of making the covered difficult catches. Like, it's going to be a tall task for the Bears linebackers and safeties in this game, because the other thing, too, is like the running game has been really solid this season with James Conner. Well, again, one of the leaders in missed tackles forced among running backs this season. They're 3rd in the NFL in yards per carry as an offense this season at 4.9. It's one of the better rushing teams in the league. They move the ball well on the ground, and when they go to the air, it's McBride over the middle, and it's deep shots to Marquise Brown. Like, that's kind of the whole offensive plan here, or at least maybe it's not the plan, but it's how the offense ends up usually panning out here. So, you definitely want to key in on James Conner, 4th in the league in missed tackles this season, tied with Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams, and David Montgomery. And you want to key on that running game. You want to stay all over Trey McBride as much as possible, and you want to stay on top of Marquise Brown. Like, those to me are kind of the big 3 defensive keys. Brown, hasn't taken that next big step forward to be an all-around number 1 receiver, but he's still their go-to deep threat. They still take their deep shots. Most of their deep shots come on the outside to wide receivers. They're not really hitting the deep middle of the field all that much. So, from a safety standpoint, you got to stay on top of the outside stuff. The cornerbacks got to stay over top of receivers trying to take them deep. And the pass rush has to get after Kyler Murray so that he doesn't have, the clean pocket and time to get deep balls off to those guys. Make him have to check it down. And, maybe that ends up being 10 catches for Trey McBride, but if it's 10 catches for 40 yards, 4 yards a catch, because he has to check it down over the middle all the time, that's not bad. But the key to that then is that you got to tackle him. You got to tackle Murray when you get the pressure on him. You got to tackle James Conner in the running game. When the first guy gets there, bring him down, right? You can't be throwing your shoulder into the guy, throwing your body into the guy, or going for the strip all the time. Good form tackling, wrapping up Kyler Murray as a pass rusher, James Conner in the running game, and Trey McBride after the catch. Just get him to the ground. I'm almost less worried about like breaking up the pass. Like, just get him to the ground. This Cardinals offense is not good enough to work their way down the field on you consistently if you just take away the deep stuff and tackle him short. you can win the game defensively. Now, obviously, you want the turnovers, you want the big plays. We've seen Kyler Murray occasionally put the ball in harm's way over the middle of the field, especially it's kind of like that intermediate middle of the field. He'll take some chances here or force a pass in that he shouldn't have and put interceptable balls there. So, like, to me, this defensive game plan is like all about linebackers and safeties because the linebackers got to tackle the running back. And the linebackers and safeties, in the box, got to tackle the running back. The linebackers and safeties have to cover Trey McBride mostly. And the linebackers and safeties are going to be in the areas of the field that Kyler Murray might be more reckless with the ball and might put the ball more in harm's way. So it's kind of a boom or bust linebacker and safety game for the Bears that's how you win and lose this game is stepping up and tackling, making plays when they're there, and just kind of doing the simple stuff defensively. Like, again, the rest of this Cardinals offense is not so good that they're going to out-talent you. Like, I like their rookie receiver, Michael Wilson, quite a bit. Rondale Moore is a fine receiver. Like, they got guys, but they're not such dynamic playmakers, or, it's not such a great offensive line that they're just going to maul you over. Like, you kind of know where the big threats are, and if you can key in on them, when you're in your zone coverages, if Trey McBride's coming near your zone, you kind of squeeze your zone a little bit closer to his side than you might to the other side, and kind of be willing to live with, if they're going to throw it all day to Rondale Moore and like Zach Pascal at receiver, make them beat you. Let them beat you, like, as long as you don't let the big boys run all over you and make big plays after the catch on you, you should be fine defensively. And certainly safety, you got to keep an eye on Brown going deep or wherever Trey McBride might be on the field. Might put Kyler Gordon in some interesting spots when they put McBride out in the slot. See how they try and get that matchup of just big, fast tight end versus smaller cornerback compared to Tremaine Edmonds or Jaquan Brisker, a little bit more beef to them. Certainly Tremaine Edmonds is quite a different matchup there. So I'm curious to see how the Cardinals attack this Bears defense, but given how well this Bears defense has played in many, many games, except for the final 4 minutes of the fourth quarter, I'm not worried about the Bears defense. I think they're going to do their job just fine and mostly shut down the Cardinals offense. It's all about, to me, the Bears offense showing up and showing out, not struggling to a 20 to 13 victory because, the defense holds the Cardinals to 13 and is dominant, but the offense keeps finishing these drives with field goals instead of touchdowns. Like, none of that. Cut that out. If you want to keep your job, dominate this lesser opponent and dominate your one-on-one matchups where you've got the talent advantage or at the very least talent equal and win those matchups. And that's how you're going to go a long way towards winning this game. We'll kind of go through where the Chicago Bears need to win those one-on-ones next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks, the better way to do daily fantasy sports, because PrizePicks puts you in complete control. You pick 2 to 6 players and whether they will perform better or worse than their PrizePicks projections. And then you can win up to 25 times your money just for getting your picks right. So, for example, PrizePicks projection for Cole Kmet, 24.5 receiving yards. They've got a couple different options you can sort of work with non-standard payouts where you can get an easier matchup or a harder matchup with different projections. You can either bet them at, you can either play at 59.5 receiving yards where you'll get more money because it's a more difficult payout, or 24.5 receiving yards for an easier payout. They've got a lot of different ways you can play with a bunch of different projections for every Bears player and really every player in every sport across the board, all with PrizePicks. It's a lot of fun. It's a great way to utilize your football knowledge. Head on over to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use our promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. That's an extra $100 to play with at prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL, promo code LockedOnNFL. PrizePicks, the better way to do daily fantasy sports. We've talked about a few of the key players in the Cardinals that we need to know and keep an eye on in this game. Let's get into some of the matchups that we'll see kind of head on in some of those areas. Like for this Bears offense to take that step forward, right? We talked about DJ Moore needs to have a number one receiver type game. The Bears offense needs to make DJ Moore a number one type receiver in this game, right? That's not a blame DJ Moore. Like, I'm not saying DJ Moore needs to play better. I'm saying the Bears need to do more with DJ Moore. And in a game like this, I'm expecting to see a lot of him matched up with Antonio Hamilton of the Cardinals secondary, another name that like you might not have heard of, a former undrafted free agent who's bounced around the league a little bit. I know he was hurt to start this season, but has been playing decently ever since. But again, it's DJ Moore versus a guy named Antonio Hamilton Sr. Like, one of them is a Pro Bowl caliber wide receiver who's never made the Pro Bowl, but 1,000-yard receiver. And the other one is a cornerback who, I'm sure is a very nice young man and sure a good human being and someone who, you tip your cap to him if he can make a good play, but not a guy who's been a consistent starter throughout his NFL career. And so your 1,000-yard receiver should dominate the guy who's not been consistently a starting caliber player in the NFL. Like, that's what it's got to be. And your quarterback's got to get it to him. And your offensive line's got to give your quarterback time to get it to him. And your offensive coordinator has to call plays that get your wide receiver in that position. But, it should be easy. And if it's not easy, it's a lot of evidence of problems in Chicago. I look also, we talked about the Cardinals missing the most tackles of any team in the league. DJ Moore's got to make guys miss tackles after the catch. Hamilton's been decent at tackling this season, to be fair. But the leader in missed tackles on this Cardinals defense is their linebacker, Josh Woods. I believe he's missed 14 tackles so far this season. It has been a rough go for him. And so, fortunately for the Cardinals, he's not out there anymore, so they're going to be tackling a little bit better. And that is former Chicago Bears linebacker, Josh Woods. That's why I wanted to mention him and get him on the podcast. But even their other linebackers, Chris Barnes, and then they got a rookie 5th-round pick, Owen Pappoe. I'm not sure if it's pronounced Pappoe, but he's a rookie. The former Packer Chris Barnes and a 5th-round rookie, Owen Pappoe. Not solid, consistent linebackers in the middle of the field. Not guys that you trust are going to make the tackles every time your player gets in that area. So to me, I look at Roschon Johnson. We want to see over these final 3 games of the season, can he emerge as the guy who is the lead back, clearly? Say, hey, I'm RB1 for 2024. We saw it against the Browns. Khalil Herbert couldn't get anything going. Deontay Foreman couldn't get anything going. Roschon Johnson got a little bit going. So now in a matchup with a defense with much worse tackling and just a much lesser defense overall in general, can Roschon Johnson be the guy that emerges again and looks like the lead back in this rotation? Or do we see Khalil Herbert and Deontay Foreman kind of get back into the swing of things for them and make some guys miss? Because those guys are both really good at making guys miss tackles. But especially I was thinking Roschon Johnson after the catch. We don't see Herbert and Foreman make nearly as much of an impact as receivers as they do in the running game. But if Fields sometimes has to check down to Roschon Johnson, can he make a guy or two miss and take the 2-yard check down into a 10-yard gain? That's a great opportunity for somebody like Roschon to prove that, hey, I'm the good pass catcher, I'm the best pass blocker, and I'm a good runner. I'm number 1 running back. Those guys are my backups next season moving forward. I guess Foreman's a free agent, but Herbert's my backup next season moving forward. Similarly, on the other side of the ball, we talked about it, but it's TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds versus Trey McBride. It's not always linebacker versus tight end, because he plays the slot. He works to the outside a lot. He'll be matched up with cornerbacks in zone sometimes. It's not purely TE versus linebacker matchup, but most often that's what you're going to see. He's going to work from the slot and inline middle of the field generally. Let's see how these linebackers do. These were the high-paid free agents for the Bears defense. These are the guys that were supposed to be kind of the strength of the defense this season, and they've played well, right? Absolutely. But here's a big test. David Njoku ran all over this defense, at least in the 4th quarter last week, and made some plays consistently. Other games, we've seen the Bears be pretty good against tight ends. Sam Laporta didn't gash them. TJ Hawkinson, got his, both Laporta and Hawkinson got their yards. They made some plays, but they weren't 100-yard tight ends against the Bears. So let's see what they've got in store for McBride, who's young, fast, big, strong, makes guys miss. At the very least, I just want to see him tackle him consistently. He's going to catch passes. He'll get 50 yards at a minimum. He's good for a good 50 yards, even against a good defense in theory. So he's going to get something. It's not about shutting down McBride, but it's about limiting him from fully taking over and kind of running all over your defense and making life easier for Kyler Murray. On the offensive line, really fascinated for the rematch. We talked about this briefly with Alex Clancy yesterday, but didn't really get into it. Montez Sweat going up against rookie right tackle Paris Johnson Jr. We talked a lot about Paris Johnson Jr. in the lead up to the draft last year, the rookie from Ohio State, 1st-round picked before the Bears were on the clock. Montez Sweat and the Commanders played Arizona week 1, and Paris Johnson Jr. didn't give up a single pressure in that game. But now, that was his first game. You don't really have much tape on him. Now, what is this, 14 weeks later? All of a sudden, you've got a little bit more on the rookie. It's not a blind matchup anymore. And you've played him before. So, okay, when I tried this in week 1, it didn't work. But now, Montez Sweat's a crafty pass rusher. And he's playing really well. But Paris Johnson's good. There's a reason why he's a top 10 pick, top 5 pick I believe, or at least top 7 at the offensive tackle position. Like, he's a solid rookie. So, yeah, 6th overall pick at the offensive tackle spot. So, like, certainly DJ Humphries on the left side is probably even an easier matchup, but I do want to see Montez Sweat versus the rookie and see if you can the veteran can pull some tricks on the rookie and make Kyler Murray's life that much more difficult. Right in Kyler Murray's face, flush him out of the pocket, away from his strength side. They'll move the Bears pass rushers around, but the matchup there with the rookie is going to be a lot of fun to watch. Also note, former Chicago Bears offensive lineman Elijah Wilkinson is the Cardinals left guard. So curious about, Justin Jones and Javon Dexter going up on the interior there. But it's not like it's a star-studded matchup across the board here. Like, Bears should, at the very least, like, push on all those matchups. I mean, McBride's kind of the tough one, but, like, you should win a lot of these matchups. And as a result, you should win this game. It should be comfortable. And if it's not, even if they win, but it's not comfortable, like, I'm not going to feel comfortable about the coaching staff as a result. Like, this needs to be a statement game, even in a season where you're out of the playoffs, you got nothing to play for. Don't play like you got nothing to play for. Play like you got something to prove against the Arizona Cardinals. No matter what they do, you can be sure we'll break it all down for you right here on the Locked On Bears podcast. I'll be at the game at Soldier Field. If you will be too, let me know on Twitter at CoxSports1. We can stop on over and say hi. I'll be with my mom. It's a Christmas present for her to go to the Bears Cardinals. We're sitting like second row. It'll be a lot of fun. Looking forward to the game. Looking forward to talking about the game with you on the podcast afterward. So make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Check out our live NFL kickoff show this afternoon as this comes out on Friday, getting you ready for all of the biggest games. I was going to say on Sunday, but we got Saturday games, Sunday games, and Monday games across the board this weekend. And have a Merry Christmas if you celebrate Christmas, or if you don't celebrate Christmas, have a good weekend and hopefully an extra day off on Monday. Whatever you do, just enjoy yourself, have a good time, and make sure you remember to bear down.